This Week in Richmond is made possible in part by Dignity Memorial, caring for our communities with a network of funeral homes and cemeteries in Virginia and throughout North America. More information about Dignity Memorial's providers is online at dignitymemorial.com.
Alpha Natural Resources. Consistent with its Running Right process, Alpha is an energy company committed to being a leader in mine safety and an environmental steward. We fuel progress around the world. More information at alphanr.com.
The Virginia Chamber of Commerce, the voice of the Virginia business community, working in legislative, regulatory, and political arenas to promote the free enterprise system. Information at vachamber.com. Virginia hospitals and health systems provide jobs. They support our economy and promote public health. Local hospitals are always open to help people with unexpected health needs. Having a stable healthcare network is vital. Virginia hospitals are our lifeline.
I just received a letter from a student who thanked me for instilling the love of math in him. That's why I teach.
Brought to you by the Virginia Education Association, because a good education is good for everybody.
Additional support is provided by these sponsors. And by the members of Virginia's public television stations. Thank you.
Welcome to This Week in Richmond, and if the viewers can see that I'm holding something in my lap, we'll be showing it to you later. But we have a very special program today. We appreciate our two guests being here, Dr. Nancy Treadway, the state librarian. I'm wanting to say senator, but former Senator Mary Margaret Whipple, who's vice chair of a very special commission that we're going to be talking about, and we'll be showing some things about this commission. One that will be monuments to women and the contributions that women have made to the Commonwealth of Virginia. Prior to the show, we were talking some about how this idea came about. I mean, in my research, I know it was the 2010 resolution chaired by Senator Walter Stosh and signed, it looked like, by almost every, if not every member of the House and the Senate that set up the commission. But prior to that time, in January of 2010, what got this started?
A group of elderly women in Richmond had this wonderful, amazing idea. And I think they talked about it around their tea table or the kitchen table and said, isn't it time that Virginia honors the achievements of Virginia women over the centuries? Women who did amazing things, as you will hear when we tell you about some of the individuals. And I remember being in the Senate Rules or Joint Rules Committee, maybe, when the ladies came to support Senator Stosh when he presented the resolution, and they spoke to it, and everyone was very inspired by what they had suggested, and I think that's why you got the unanimous approval from the House and Senate.
So almost 6 years later, from the time they had that conversation, some very exciting things are soon to be happening. And in fact, what I'm holding here that we'll be showing is some of the artist renditions of what it might be looking like. How about any other opening comments, and then we'll get right into showing the pictures.
Well, I remember that occasion very well, and I think what really struck me was these forces of nature, these women appealing to the legislators' recollections of the influence that their mothers, grandmothers, and key women had had in their lives, and basically challenging them, how can you not acknowledge the importance of that in Virginia's present and Virginia's past. And it was amazing how quickly that agreement to do this came. So I was impressed that they were very savvy politically, knowing a good way to link it with legislators' own experiences.
That's great because each and every one of the ones who signed that resolution had a mother,
Yes.
and if not a sister, and other women in their lives that they really greatly respected and admired. Well, let me hold this so the camera can be on it, and then tell the viewers some of what they're seeing in this particular scene.
Let's begin with the fact that it is to be located on the Capitol grounds, that
Yes.
the Senate and the House has set aside a beautiful site and approved it. As you walk up from the bell tower on the Capitol grounds, there's a place where the path divides into two, and it will be set right in there. It's a beautiful setting, almost due west of the Capitol itself and on the ground. So we're very excited about, to begin with, just about the site and where it'll be located. What you see before you is a sort of a garden setting, an oval with a sundial in the middle, and the sundial is going to point to each of the counties of Virginia. On one side is a long semicircular bench, on both sides, and then on the one side a glass wall that we can talk about a little bit later, which will hold the names of additional women. In the center part of the plaza, seated or standing around, it will be 12 bronze statues of women who have made remarkable contributions to life in Virginia.
Oh, that's quite exciting. You know, we have a short video, I think 30 seconds or so, and we might have it shown while I'm still holding this and you're talking, Dr. Treadway, some more about it. We'll have that video shown. We'll tell our viewers that they can go on the Facebook page that was created, and on that Facebook page they can again see this video, get all kinds of information. There's a website that has information showing all the commission members. Studio wasn't large enough to have every commission member to be here, and we appreciate the two of you, members of the commission, speaking for the rest of the commission. But they will be able to get that information. They can see the video, they can listen to it, but we're going to see it some while you continue to describe this.
Certainly. Well, I think one of the things to remember about this too is it was the winning design of a competition that a number of designers engaged in. And I think one of the things that really appealed to the members of the commission in this design was that it was not putting women up on a pedestal, making them larger than life and almost unreal and inaccessible, but this was a design in which the visitor could move into the monument itself, stand next to women, feel that they were on a human scale, and really experience them as real people.
I changed the picture in order to, I think, to illustrate what you're saying, and the people walking about now, I'm not going to tilt it back for me to see, but they're about the same height as the...
Yes, and I think the sculptor does plan to do a lot of research on the 12 women that will be depicted there, so he will try to get them as close to life size as they were in real life. And we think this will make a huge impression on everyone who visits, but especially I think young people who love to stand next to a historical statue and be photographed, and hopefully they'll think about that and remember the name and go and look them up and learn something about them.
And they can go across the street to the Library of Virginia and get all the information.
Absolutely, absolutely. Love to do that. Love to help them.
Yes, yes. Now, the women that were chosen, if the design was a challenge for the commission, choosing the women was as I recall reading about it, and you lived through it, that was a major challenge too, because you could have done 30 or 40 as well as 12. I mean, you could have taken all that entire area beside where it's going to be. So tell our viewers some about how that process worked.
Well, the Library of Virginia was kind enough to contact a large number of historians, people who are familiar with Virginia history, women's studies, and so on, so that they could advise us, and they put together a list for us of recommendations, and it did have many more names on it than 12, but they suggested 12 that they thought perhaps best exemplified the history and different contributions of women and over time. The problem, of course, is there's so many areas of accomplishment that we couldn't do all of them. We did primarily rely on the list that was provided by this panel of historians, but we made a few changes for better geographic coverage because we wanted to be sure that every part of Virginia was represented among them.
The commission also had some focus groups around the state, so they actually invited men and women in communities across Virginia, especially making sure that local historical societies or community leaders would know about these events and could come and share stories of women from their areas that they thought might be eligible. So there was a grassroots approach to this as well, to try to get as many suggestions for people to be included as possible.
Well, it's going to be a little longer, and hopefully not too much longer, before things start taking shape over there on Capitol grounds. Tell our viewers about some of the women. Take a couple of them and describe them. I have the entire list. We may have time to talk about each of them, but who are some of the ones that you'd like to mention first?
Well, I think one of the ones that proved to be a little bit controversial, but I think the right choice was made in the end, was the earliest native Virginian that's depicted on the monument, a woman named Kokkoeski, hard to pronounce. And I think most people probably thought, well, it should be Pocahontas because everyone knows Pocahontas. And Pocahontas will be on the monument. She'll be on that glass wall. But the Virginia Indian community today felt that Kokkoeski better represented them in their people in the early part of Virginia history, and part of it is because there are some concrete facts about her life. She was an Indian queen who negotiated more than one important treaty with the English colonists, and she's credited with bringing peace at a time when, had there been continued conflict, not only would the colonists have suffered, but her people have suffered as well. The descriptions of her that survive in accounts show her as a very commanding presence, a person of authority who commanded respect among her own people, and sometimes begrudgingly, but respect as well from the English. So she seemed like someone, first of all, that most people wouldn't know about, that they should learn about, and she well represented the sense of history that today's Virginia Indians learn and respect. So we definitely wanted to reflect that in the choice there. But Pocahontas was important, and she will be on that monument. So.
Right. And the one you chose really comes at a time when, while women have always been strong, but have oftentimes had to hide their strength rather than demonstrate it. And she was one who was able to demonstrate her strength.
And confound the English colonists a little bit, because they weren't used to that. They, yes, they had a queen, but they weren't used to negotiating with women beyond the royal house.
That's exciting. Senator Whipple, name another one that comes to your mind.
Clementina Rind, who together with her husband founded one of the early newspapers, the Virginia Gazette, and he died of, I believe, just within the year, perhaps, after they founded it, and she continued the business by herself, was named by the House of Burgesses to print the official papers of Virginia, and was a very successful businesswoman in an early time.
You know, you mentioned the glass wall, but I don't think we've told our viewers about that it's not just going to be the 12. You mentioned the 13th, Pocahontas, but what's this glass wall all about?
Well, if you recall the image that you showed of the monument, there was a curved wall across the back side that will be glass and will have names etched into it. So it will include, we haven't decided exactly on the final number, and I think I think we're leaning toward leaving some space for women's names to be added in the future because history continues. But we'll have many more names from each of Virginia's 4 centuries, women of accomplishment, women who we simply didn't have the space to do statues of. So there'll be educators and community leaders and women who led, religious movements and founded schools and pioneered in various careers and were college presidents, women along those lines. So there'll be a lot of women's history reflected there.
Yeah, and it's very current because we are asking people of Virginia to nominate women whose names will be etched on what we're calling a wall of honor. And they have an opportunity to do that by looking at the website for the Women's Monument Commission or our Facebook page and contact us in any way they see to give us the information. There's a nomination form for people to fill out. It has one proviso that the person had spent substantial part of their life in Virginia, that their accomplishments were in Virginia, whether or not they were actually born in the state. And also that if they need to have been deceased for 10 years or more. So people from our past, but a little more recent past than some of the statues. And so we are currently gathering those nominations and looking forward to another difficult task
Very difficult.
of choosing. But in that case, maybe a couple hundred names that would go on this glass wall.
And with space to add others in the future.
And space to add more in the future.
Yes, yes.
We want all the little girls who come to this monument to think maybe one day their name would be on that wall of honor.
It was interesting, the very first draft of the resolution that created the commission way back in 2010 spoke of memorial. And then there were amendments made in the House and then Senate amendments that changed that to monument. And not just memorializing, but a monument. You were there in the Senate as that change was made.
I think the thought was that women still have many accomplishments to be honored and achievements that will be reflected in Virginia's history in the future. And we didn't want this to be a memorial that said all that is over.
Yes.
In fact, women are still a very vital part of Virginia's history.
Yes. Now, let me look at the list and ask you about an early Jamestown settler, Anne Burris Layden. What do we know about her?
We picked her because we did want to reflect the kind of courage, fortitude, sacrifice that it took to cross an ocean and help to be part of planting a colony. And what we certainly know is you can't have a permanent colony that's going to last without women. It can't just be men. And so we picked someone that there is some documentary record for. So she's really standing in for hundreds and thousands of early women. But we know her story. We know about when she was born and died. We know about her marriage, her children. It's believed that her daughter, oldest daughter named Virginia, was the first child born in the present day boundaries of Virginia. And she lasted a long time. She survived a lot of hardships and was sort of a typical colonist of her day. So she's really was not famous in her time, but she's someone we can document, tell a story about, and have that story inspire younger people to think about what it took to come to this new place called Virginia and leave everything that you knew behind and start a new life.
She was very young at the time.
Yes.
She was 14 or 15 years old, I think. So it was a very daring change for her to come and take a chance on the new world.
Oh, I'm sure. Let's fast forward to the 19th century. Sarah Boyd Jones of Richmond, first woman physician to pass the state medical boards.
And she was African American, which is quite an achievement for her day. She's a wonderful example of someone that the history books have simply overlooked, and it was just assumed that women really didn't enter the medical profession in significant ways until the second, third decade of the 20th century. But here was somebody in the very late 19th century who attended medical school, came back to Richmond, and opened her own practice. She died relatively young, so she didn't have a long career, but the fact that she was here practicing, serving African American citizens in Richmond was really an amazing feat that we don't want to be forgotten. That despite the odds, this was the height of Jim Crow Virginia, she was able to do what she did.
Certainly folks not just in the Richmond area but throughout the state know the name of Maggie Walker, so we won't need to tell her story that much, but there was another Richmond person, Adele Goodman Clark, a suffragist and art leader. Who was she?
Well, she was quite a remarkable woman.
She was.
When we were talking about including her, we realized that she really represented several different groups because she was a suffragist and very active in that movement and very influential in that movement. But she also had the side that was the artist, and then she was the first president of the Virginia League of Women Voters and served in that capacity for many years. So she is, again, a very remarkable person that I think people will enjoy learning more about.
You know, born right after the Civil War ended and lived on up into the 1920s. So
That's
quite,
right.
quite an interesting
Actually,
person.
she lived into the 1980s.
Yeah.
She was quite elderly when she passed
Oh.
away. Yeah.
Yes.
I think her active period was right.
Yes,
You know, women
yes.
got the vote in 1920, and then that's when the League of Women Voters was founded. And so then after that, she was the president of the Virginia League.
And showing the diversity, as you mentioned before, there's a Laura Lou Copenhaver
Yes.
from Smith County. Tell us a little bit about her.
Well, she's one of my favorite folks because she looked around her and saw a great need. She saw women in, Appalachian Virginia who were experts at all kind of handicrafts, particularly textile manufacturing and other homemade goods, but they had no way. They made them for their families, for their homes, but they had no way to use those skills to actually contribute to their own or their community's economic growth, what we call today economic development. And she realized that if she created a vehicle for them to sell their wares and created basically a marketing and a production process there, that these native to Southwest Virginia home crafts could actually secure a worldwide market. And so she created something called Rosemont Industries that did that, at a time when certainly Appalachia was in desperate need of this, and it became internationally known. So she's someone who thought about, what do women need in this community, and what can I do to benefit them and to benefit Southwestern Virginia.
How soon will we be seeing this starting to take
this
place?
is, as you have already realized, it's been a long process.
Yes.
And part of it was like choosing the design.
Yeah.
We had 30-some submissions from sculptors and designers, and that took a year. It took a year to choose the women and make sure that we had settled on that. So all of this has taken a good deal of time, and now it depends on our raising private money, $3.5 million. And we've made a start on that, but we have a long way to go, and we really are hoping that many people in Virginia will want to contribute to what we think is going to be just an amazing artistic monument on the grounds of the Capitol. I figured out that if every woman in Virginia gave $1, we'd be there. So obviously we need donations of all sizes, and we have received some that are, so we've probably raised about $500,000 or something of the sort. We're on our way. But we are working diligently on trying to gather the funding that will be necessary to make this a reality.
Yes. So before long.
But it needs to happen. It needs to
Yes.
happen. Virginia women were essential to the success of the Commonwealth from its founding, and that is not reflected anywhere. And what we're hoping is this monument will serve as a catalyst for people wanting to learn more. and it'll help make it impossible to teach Virginia history and to read about it without including women in the story.
We do believe that this is one of the first of its kind in the nation, that while there are some monuments to individual women, there is, as far as we know, nothing on the grounds of a capital that would honor the achievements of women over the centuries.
Well, thank you both for being on This Week in Richmond, and we look forward to seeing the monuments.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
This Week in Richmond is made possible in part by Dignity Memorial, caring for our communities with a network of funeral homes and cemeteries in Virginia and throughout North America. More information about Dignity Memorial's providers is online at dignitymemorial.com.
Alpha Natural Resources, a leader in mine safety and an environmental steward.
The Virginia Chamber of Commerce, the voice of the Virginia business community. For jobs, the economy, and public health, Virginia Hospitals, our lifeline.
The Virginia Education Association, because a good education is good for everybody.
Additional support is provided by these sponsors. And by the members of Virginia's public television stations. Thank you.